Connection as currency, oftentimes we hear of individual terms and they're all interchangeable, I would say. So you hear about marketing, you hear about sales, you hear about influence. These are all byproducts, results. But I think the core of what really is essential in that process is connection. And so when you connect, what we typically do is we take our clients, our leaders, whoever we're working with, through a 4-step process. This framework, essentially, we start with your mission. Like Simon Sinek says, start with why. What are your highest commitments? What are the reasons that you're doing what you're doing? And then we move into your message. What is the message that you're transferring? How are you communicating with your target audience? And then we're going to move more into relationships, your media, and your marketing. Too often people do that early on in the process. But once you get those relationships in place, then you're looking to build a movement. So we start with your mission. Are you connected to your mission? Are you connected to yourself? Are you connected to helping people and impacting them through that connection? And then we take them through that process and ultimately want to build a movement. And sometimes, whether it's personal or professional, you might get stuck. You may have a loss of a job, a parent, a child, or maybe you just feel unfulfilled at a job that you don't really enjoy. And that's where we want to step back to the process of connection, reconnect to what it is that really inspires you or why you're doing it, or to a passion of yours, and then rebuild those existing relationships to connect with the people that can allow you to elevate yourself to new opportunities and experiences. And then lastly, you're reclaiming that power or that purpose that maybe you abandoned, so that you can rewrite that narrative and really deliver an empowering story. And as leaders, connection as currency, if you connect to your story, if you connect to your audience, then you're going to connect to the opportunities and the revenue that it brings.
Very profound. Let's still look at your entrepreneurial journey. As we all know it, entrepreneurship is never linear. There are always ups, downs, highs and lows. What were some of your toughest setbacks in the early stages of your business?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. So when I first started my agency, they say imitation is the highest form of flattery. And so when I started my agency, like I talked about with MirrorDry, I took a look at the general landscape. And I looked at a bunch of different companies. And there was one company that I noticed that was really doing a successful job. It was called Hawk Media. And they called themselves your outsourced CMO. And so when I took a look at that, I said, that's really amazing. I'm doing CMO work as well, but I'm not necessarily outsourced. I'm just doing the work virtually. So I started as your virtual CMO, and that brought a lot of business. And this was before the pandemic and Zoom calls. And so that allowed me to work with clients all over the United States. And I started in aesthetic medicine, and we were growing. But then there was a period of time where some of the efforts that we were doing a lot of organic storytelling and social media. It hit a plateau because Meta essentially changed their platform and wanted you to pay for placement. The organic storytelling and the viral videos, and you see a lot of that happening now with Instagram, wasn't reaching the level of people that we needed to. So that's where we needed to rework and really bring forth a 360 approach where there's paid, there's earned, there's owned media. So that was one problem that I had that we were able to overcome. And then secondly to that, during the pandemic, I relocated my entire business from California to Kentucky. And at this point in time, I didn't know anybody. I was virtual. It was during the pandemic. Fortunately, I was already a virtual agency, but I had to run my business out of my home for the period of time where we relocated, and then my mom got sick. And so I became her caretaker. And the room where I normally was running the business out of became her room. So I had nowhere to run the business from, and I had to be creative and really withstand this. Not only was I going through, moving cross country, I had a newborn, I had my mom who was sick, and then on top of that, I started to lose clients, and I had to figure it out. So for a time being, I actually ran my business out of the laundry room. And so during the pandemic, I was literally taking Zoom calls within the laundry room, positioning my computer so there was a white room behind me. I created a little board with my logo, slapped it up over my shoulder, and I took Zoom calls from my laundry room, and then slowly, piece by piece, I was able to rebuild the agency.